How did boss become your gamer tag?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get that sometimes on stream too, and it's always hard to come up with a great answer. I think it's just because that name always appealed to me for some reason. And when I was younger, I don't know, I watched some movies. I think one was like The Boss Baby or something, and I thought it was funny. That's when I was a lot younger. And then when I used to play like Roblox and Clash of Clans, for some reason my name was the boss hey 123. It was like a lot longer of a tag, and then I just thought it would make more sense to shorten it down to just boss or boss CR because it's just a bit simpler and I think better for content creation.
Clash Royale. How would you explain it to someone that's never heard of it before?
Ooh, so first of all, it's a mobile game because I mean there's different types of games, and it's probably one of the few games on mobile that is actually pretty fairly popular and really made a name for itself over the years. And I would consider it a strategy game. Some people compare it sort of like to chess, even though I think it's a lot different than chess because it's real time and it's a completely different game. It's kind of the best comparison because that kind of shows that yeah, it's a very unique game, like most games are, so it's hard to compare to another one. And it's a card game, so you basically have eight cards in your deck, and at one time in your cycle, you have four, and then there's elixir that you generate, and each card costs a different amount in order to be able to play it. And there's over 100 cards in the game, so many you collect, and you also have basically two princess towers and a king tower, which is basically what you're trying to defend, because when you lose a tower, the other person gets a crown, or if you take one of theirs, then you get a crown, and if you take one of their towers, they haven't taken yours, and if the time ran out, then you win the game. If you three crown them, then you win automatically, even if the it hasn't been 3 minutes or a certain amount of time. That's probably the basic explanation for that, I would say.
I've watched so many of this man's lives of him playing this game, and I just have not caught on.
That's completely understandable. I feel like even for people that get the game and first start playing it, it really takes a few weeks before you really kind of get the hang of it. So it makes complete sense that just from like watching it, it seems kind of complicated, especially with like a lot of the new things added to the game, like just features like evolutions and all that. It's even more complicated now, especially for new players.
It came out in 2016, right? Is that when you started playing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I started playing, it was like really at the very beginning, around then when it first came out, when it was in, I believe it's called the beta phase, where it was kind of, they were still testing the game and there weren't a lot of people playing it yet. Like it wasn't globally released, it was only out in, I believe, Canada and a few other countries. So I actually made, I remember a Canadian, I think like Apple ID or something, just to be able to get the game. Because I remember the way I got into it was I was watching some of the streamers I watched who played Clash of Clans. Probably people watching, some of them may not be familiar to some people. Some watching might know though, like Galadon or like Molt, who are basically like big Clash of Clans YouTubers, or Galadon was. Molt actually started with Clash Royale. Yeah, just realized that. Mixed that up. But yeah, basically I was watching Galadon's streams and he was like playing the game because he got early access. I thought it was very interesting, and then that's how I ended up downloading it from there.
How long did it take you to like get pretty good at the game?
So, like I said, because we were talking about how new people watching it looks a little confusing, hard to understand, I think it definitely is that way for anyone that starts. I think for me, the first week or two, kind of like everyone else, I was just kind of picking up the basics. And then it was really when I started to play more after weeks, months of playing. And then also, I remember playing with people at school, like in middle school, it was fun playing with friends, just friendly battles or watching each other. And kind of a pretty competitive person, so I kind of naturally, just like as I played, I tried to get as good as I possibly could. It wasn't really until I've been playing for maybe 2 or 3 years when I reached what you would say like the prime would be
Mhm.
in a game, like in competitive. But also when I first started playing, I was really young. I think I want to say I might have even been only 12 years old, but I think it was 12 or 13. And maybe at that age, it's not even possible to like be at like your best yet either. So that could be another factor.
When I recognized you initially, I was like, wait. I remember seeing a bunch of people play this game when I was younger. I remember it was like a huge thing when I was in like middle. I think I want to say mainly middle school. I don't think I really saw a lot of people playing it in high school.
Well, I kind of had a similar experience. Everyone I remember pretty much like, all the guys were playing it always in like the cafeteria or in class, and I remember even some people were like asking me to like play ladder for them, like that type of thing, like help them in the game or like make a deck for them. I guess that's when the game was like really at its like peak in popularity because it first came out, and that's often what happens when a game first comes out and then it slowly like dips a bit. And then in high school, some people were playing it a little, but it definitely wasn't to the same extent. It was like a few people, but
What's your favorite thing about Clash Royale?
yeah, I like kind of the strategy aspect of it. I feel like it doesn't really matter how good you are at the game, you can always improve, and there's just like new things you can learn because there's so many interactions, there's so many different decks you can play, and even the people that are the best in the game, like the top like 3, 5, whatever, like best players, they are still not like the best they can be. Like there's still room for them to learn and improve too. So I think that's kind of what really appeals to me. And I think too, there's just a lot of creativity in the game too. That's why for some people it never really gets boring because there's like balance changes and stuff too. So the game is always constantly changing a bit. Like even though the general basics of the game are the same, like it's a tower defense game and card game, there's always some aspects of it changing every month or two, or new things getting added, like cards, or there's a new thing called Tower Troops, completely changed the game, stuff like that.
What's your favorite things about being a content creator?
I guess maybe the best way to talk about it would be to like explain why did I even get into content creation in the first place, because when I was really young, I probably never would have imagined that I would want to be like a content creator or something like that, because I was someone that was kind of like shy and didn't really like attention, like especially in person. But then I don't know why, but like online, it's not something I really well, I didn't mind it. It's weird how there's a bit of a difference there, but I guess the first time where I really got an experience of kind of what it's like to be a content creator was when I was in middle school. Actually, I think I mentioned to you, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
not to. I mentioned it I think before a few times on stream. I used to do musically or whatever, so that was what I guess TikTok is now, like it changed into that, but I did like those like lip syncing, videos that, those back in the day were like pretty popular where it was like if it was a big tune or song or whatever, like lip syncing to that or doing some like hand motions, and then I kind of built like a bit of a following. I kind of enjoyed it, like it was pretty fun. And then I think what got me into specifically like Clash Royale content creation was watching other content creators, the ones I watched for Clash of Clans, and I kind of enjoyed the way they talked about the game, explained things, and I was kind of thinking like, maybe that's something I could try out. So when I got into Clash Royale, as I got better at it, that's when I decided, I think it was probably when I was 14 years old, I think, was when I started streaming on Twitch. And then it started off kind of small, but then like over time got I grew like more of a fan base. Like I think everyone says this, like every streamer when they start out, it's the typical story of how, you're only getting like 1, 2, 3 viewers, so you're just starting from scratch, and then slowly you have like 10, and then before you know it, like a few dozen, and then I think at the point when I was averaging like 100, 200 viewers on Twitch, people were asking about it too, like, am I ever going to start a YouTube? And that's kind of what got me into it. Like, I was hesitant to do it or start one, and then I wasn't uploading like that often. And then as they started to get traction, I kind of just kept at it at that point.
Did you, when we first spoke, you said you felt a little pressured to start YouTube?
Pressure, so I guess maybe what you're referring to is I wasn't sure if it was something I wanted to do entirely yet, but it was something that a lot of people were suggesting to me. And the CEO of Tribe Gaming, which is the organization I'm on now, I remember when I joined them, I first was with them just as a streamer. And I think too, he was actually one of the people that really was talking to me about how I should look into doing YouTube too. And honestly, those people like him and then also like a lot of the other people in the chat telling me that's what I should do, I kind of now appreciate it because I might have ended up, if it weren't for that, starting it later than I did. But I think when I started it, I'm overall pretty happy with the time I did because I was still like young at the time. I think I was like, I want to say I was 15. I'm pretty sure when I started YouTube.
And you mentioned the music, like, are like, could we find these videos floating around still, or?
That's hard to say. I mean, my musically name I remember was Eric the Bear. I forget how many followers it had. I want to say it had, I think it had over 10,000 at one point, maybe like 12, 14,000, but I was like looking for it on TikTok and it like didn't save or something. I don't know. Maybe it was because the account was like inactive for a while because I remember I stopped using it after middle school.
If anyone finds this, just like send it to me, please, like on Instagram, anywhere. Like, I really want to see these videos. That kind of answers like my first question about like, if you were an animal, what animal would you be?
But then it's like, what kind of bear? Because you know, there's grizzly bears, there's black bears, there's polar bears, there's pandas. It's like, huh, pandas are kind of cool. Maybe panda?
I want to say panda because like you're always hungry. You make like discussion videos pretty frequently. What's your creative process behind that?
I guess I could get into like why I started making those discussion videos. Because I used to just do gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
I think a large part of it is because you have to make adjustments, I think, to your content, especially in this case when it's a game that's been out for a while. And I think people too naturally are going to get bored if you don't shake things up, because I think that's what happened when I was only doing gameplay. It's not like the views were going down really quick, but it's like month to month they were like slowly going down a bit. So I really wanted to bring in different kinds of content, and I realized too there's very little competition with the discussion videos. Like some Clash Royale YouTubers do discussion videos where they just talk about things in the game, but right now it's not many. It might be like one or two other creators, whereas gameplay there's like dozens. Like so many people are doing that, and I think that's a big thing, like finding a niche, like in your niche. Like technically speaking, Clash Royale is kind of a niche in and of itself. Like it's kind of like a form of content you can do, but then inside of that, like finding ways you can set yourself apart from the other creators, so there's like a reason for people to kind of watch you, if that makes sense. And what I realized too, I enjoy, I think, like just talking about things and explaining things and like giving my opinion on them, besides just the gameplay itself, just the decisions in the game or just like anything along those lines, like news, like drama going on in the game. I'm kind of interested in talking about it, so I think that's a big factor as well.
What do you think the main thing is that sets you apart from other CR creators in terms of like your style of videos, the way you present topics, etc.?
The audience who does watch me, why they prefer watching me over other people, it might be because of I try to be very honest, like and authentic. I think some creators are, but there also are some creators that might not be maybe as authentic. Like maybe they come off as maybe a little more fake, but I try to be like very truthful in like everything I say or like how I present myself in the videos. And some creators are pros, some aren't, some are entertainment kind of, but there are some definitely creators that are better than me skill wise. And then there's some that are just like more entertaining, if that makes sense. Like their personality, like maybe they're just like really funny, like very outgoing. Whereas for me, what I realized I have to kind of capitalize on my strengths. So I'm like a bit more serious and like I'm good at explaining things often. I realize like that's why too the discussion videos or when I'm just like explaining things, like teaching people things, that's kind of I feel like in a way my strength sometimes. So I've really tried to kind of capitalize on that too, and I think that could be another reason why people enjoy watching some of my videos.
Eric's very, like, the way he presents himself in his discussion videos, especially, he's very serious and, like, straightforward. He's like that in real life. Is it like film and upload, or do you just, because, like, when you're discussing things, it's like pretty recent things you're discussing. Do you plan ahead? Or
Yeah, I think it just depends. I do like a tiny bit of planning. It's not like I decide like a few minutes beforehand. I usually it'll at least be like a few hours or like earlier in the day. So I'm like thinking about it for a while. That's often my planning process is kind of like just thinking about it to myself, like maybe like brainstorming a bit, like as I'm doing like other things, and then it might be like later in the day, then I'm like ready to record and talk about it. Some of it too is like looking for the right information and things, so it's like if it's something like in game or if it's something like on Twitter or Reddit, it's like finding all that, like seeing if there's like any interesting replies. So basically like compiling it all together and then I mean I do like a little bit of editing, but I think those videos tend to be like a little more basic to make sometimes, so there's not a ton of editing needed. It's just mostly like cutting things out, like if I'm messing up what I'm saying. But that process, I guess, isn't, I guess, super complicated.
oh, how long does it take you to record?
It's hard to say because some videos take longer than others, but it generally, I would say, doesn't take more than an hour, unless it's like those longer videos I do. So, like tier lists, or if I'm doing like a full guide or something, maybe those could take a couple hours. I think probably the longest thing I record or do would be the streams that it can sometimes be like 3 to 5 hours long, depending on what I'm doing. A little bit of editing and then figuring out to like the thumbnail, like what to title it, and doing all those things on YouTube when it's like getting ready to upload. So
And what does your like setup look like?
it's like the key lights, I think I mentioned to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then a mic. It's just a Elgato Wave mic, I think is what it's called. I used to have, I forget what I had before that. It was like a Blue Yeti mic, and then just I used to use a laptop for everything. It's like it was kind of bad because I feel like as a creator you want to have a PC, but I do have a PC now. I don't know if I know like all the specs off the top of my my head, but it's decent. And then I don't know, there's like a thing on the wall that like I talk into, it like absorbs my voice kind of. I
It's
think it's
called what is it? It's like the soundboard, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
just so like, if I'm talking loud and it's like late at night, it doesn't like, wake everyone up, I guess.
Did you
So
always have that, or were your parents like, you need to get soundboard or something?
that was a fairly recent thing, probably in the last like year and a half, I'd say. Yeah.
Oh no. Imagine just trying to go to sleep and you hear this guy talking about Clash Royale at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Nah, it's funny because sometimes I do record at that time, but it never wakes anyone up. It's weird because actually my if anyone wakes people up, it's usually one of my brothers when they're like screaming and playing games themselves. So
Are they Clash players as well?
no, no, no. They both used to play Clash at some point for a bit, but they never really got into it. They mostly play just like PC or console games.
So you're a pro player.
Yeah, I am.
What does that mean?
Basically, there's leagues in Clash Royale, competitive leagues, kind of like how in any video game there's usually a pro scene where people can compete and make money. It's kind of changed a lot throughout the years because it used to be team based, but now it's more solo. So that was a big thing that changed in the last few years. But it used to be CRL would be the name of the main competitive league, which is just Clash Royale League. That's what CRL stands for. And it used to be teams with like bunch of different formats and sets. I would think it was like teams of like 4 or 5, and it was usually competing for like a big prize pool of like it was usually like $1 million or something big like that. And then usually the players on the teams were like paid a salary too, and they stayed in like a team house or something and traveled for it. So it's not a good thing, but like a lot of these players like even dropped out of like school, or like they like put like a pause kind of on their like studying for like a semester or a year. I guess like it's, is a pretty big like opportunity, so it's understandable. I never did that because yeah, my parents wouldn't have approved of me like, not going to like school just to compete, because it's like you're traveling and it's like it's going on for like a few months. Once it was actually because of COVID, when it was online actually for a couple of years, that's really where I finally got like kind of a taste in like competing. I was basically, it was on a team that was based in Asia. It was a Chinese team. It was called TTG. And yeah, I guess it was basically my rookie season. And I ended up having actually a positive win rate. Like I won over 50% of the games. So I was pretty happy about that for it being like my first season. And it was just a nice, just kind of cool experience. Like one I'll definitely never forget, even with it being online, because it's unfortunate because typically the finals and everything are like on stage, and you're just traveling and competing on stage in front of an audience, which is like, well, nerve-wracking, but at the same time it's pretty cool because it's obviously something you won't ever forget. After that, I kind of just prioritized content more, so I wasn't, even though I'm still a pretty good player, I wasn't anymore at the level where I would like say I was like top 20 in the game. So it was hard to be in like contention for like world finals, but I still travel and go to the world finals because Supercell, the company of the game, they invite the creators to travel and go to the big competitive events. So that's pretty cool that I still get an opportunity to watch them in person.
That's the last one was in Finland.
Yep, that's correct. I forgot to mention that. It's solo now, so it's kind of like everyone is playing for themselves and it's not team-based anymore. I think too, Supercell saves money having it that way, because salaries aren't paid out and there isn't like, it might sound funny because it's like a video game, but there also would be like coaches and like analysts and stuff like that, which you would think of when it's like a real life sport, but they actually like have those in like, video games too. And it probably like saves the money when it's solo, because then those aren't like into the equation and it's kind of like everyone is sort of playing for themselves. I don't know what I prefer. The solo though is pretty cool because people get to like make a name for themselves, and it's not like the whole team, it's instead just like one person who's like really talented. And but yeah, the last couple years it's been in Finland.
So you talked a little bit about tribe gaming at the beginning. What is tribe gaming for people that don't know?
It's kind of crazy because I feel like I've been on Tribe for quite some time now, sort of around when it actually first formed. I forget when it was actually originally, like, I guess, created by the CEO, who is Chief Pat. He's actually a very big YouTuber himself. He does Tribe now as his main job. He's not really uploading videos anymore, but I want to say that was probably around in 2018 or so, around when Tribe started. Maybe it started in 2017, but I think I joined it around 2018. And I remember the way I got in is I like messaged him directly or something on Twitter or Discord. I wasn't even expecting him to, I guess, like respond, but he actually ended up like being interested in me joining after we had like a little bit of a call and we got to like know each other a little bit. So I was one of the, I think, first creators to join, especially one of the first like Clash Royale ones, because they do all mobile games, like all the kind of big ones. They do like Clash of Clans, like Brawl Stars, and then I think some of the shooter ones, like I know there's like Call of Duty, like mobile, and like those games. They have creators for all those. But basically the best way to describe Tribe is it's pretty much a mobile gaming organization. Those are the main creators and the pro players they have too. It's all mobile games. That's what they specialize in. And I think it's kind of a mutual benefit for Tribe having the pros and the creators because it helps kind of like advertise, or there's more eyes on their company because people watch the creators and see like they're on Tribe, so they learn kind of about that. And I guess the way it's beneficial for the creators and the players is there's like partnerships, like sponsorships and stuff like that, that for me, and then I know a lot of the other creators on Tribe has like a sales team and all that. They have like a lot of staff that works for them, and they help us find like integrations and sponsorships and stuff like that. You'll sometimes, I'm sure, see like at the beginning of YouTube videos someone's like advertising a product or like a game or something like that, which like they help us find those opportunities, and that's a big part of our revenue. The ad revenue is of course like a big a big one too for like a lot of creators, but
Mhm.
oftentimes sponsorships and integrations can like overtake that in many cases, especially if you're a larger creator that gets a lot of opportunities. So that's kind of why it's, I guess, like beneficial to be a part of an organization.
Well, your profile picture on YouTube is like a little like guy kind of like hands in the air type screaming.
Yeah, it's like an emote in the game that it's the knight that has his hands raised like that. So that's, I guess, the inspiration.
Has like blue eyes and like a Tribe gaming t-shirt. Like who made that?
Yeah, so that was like a graphic designer. I think he was from Argentina or something. And that was like a long time ago. I think that was at this point probably like 4 years. I've even thought about at this point changing it or like updating my YouTube profile picture just because it's been so long. I feel like I've never bothered to do that just because, well, no one's really, I guess, like asked if I'm gonna change it, and I feel like it kind of fits, and I don't know what I would change it to. That was one of my favorite emotes when it first came out, so I think that's why I was inspired to do that for the profile picture. And there were other people in the community that got kind of customized emotes like that by him, and like he did a pretty good job, so I was like, yeah, let's try
I don't really game if that wasn't obvious already.
it.
But we met each other in our college class, and I want you guys to pause, like for 1 second. Like you can pause like the video or like Spotify or whatever. I want you to guess what class it was. Okay? I'm gonna give you like a few seconds. All right, yeah, okay. Art history. Art history. That is so like even thinking about that now, it's so like strange. Like,
It is bizarre,
yeah.
yeah.
Like if it was like a gen ed class, like a math class, I'd be like, okay, yeah. But like how did a journalist and a gaming creator end up in the same art history class? That's wild,
it
man.
it really is kind of bonkers too, because like art history is typically like not something I would take too. I
Right?
think
Me
it's like,
too. So I'm like,
yeah, it's just like, but it's like, I guess, you need the fine art credit, so it's like, why not?
I want to show you guys something your favorite creator made. Okay, ready? Okay, wait, I don't know if it's gonna show up well.
Oh gosh.
Do you remember like what the directions were for this assignment?
Yeah, I do. It was like, so it was like a partner observe and draw, or describe and draw, or whatever. And
Mhm.
like I remember I wasn't able to look at what it was, and you had to like describe it to me or something.
This was on literally the second day of us knowing each other. It was so like it was funny. I was very hesitant to reach out because I was like, this is pretty strange. But eventually I did. And what was your initial reaction to getting that message?
I was like a little surprised because I would say like something like that hasn't yet happened, I guess, going to college. I think there were a couple people like when I was just like walking around in campus, like some people recognized me, but I never got like an email or something kind of like formal like that. So I thought it was like kind of interesting, and I was like, "Oh, okay, like I'll respond to this and kind of like see." I get though why you were like a little maybe like nervous or like intimidated kind of to like reach out, because I feel like a lot of people, I don't know like what it is, think like a lot of creators are kind of like just like busy, or they would feel like, oh, like I'm not gonna respond. But I think like in my experience at least, like I could be wrong. I think like most creators have probably like more free time than you think and are like willing to talk. So I guess that goes for like anyone watching. Like don't be like afraid to like, you know, say like hi if you like recognize, like
Your
one of
favorite
your
creator?
yeah, or just someone you know, because most people are more like friendly than or like willing to talk than you would think, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Eric was so unapproachable. Like if I were to do this in class and like if I were to go up to him like during class, like it wouldn't have.
Nah, I get that. I actually think that might be why a lot of people don't want to go up to talk to me in general, like because I'm just like a serious person, and I don't know, maybe like I just come off as like a little scary sometimes. I don't know what it is because I'm just not like smiling.
You've had a few like interactions where people knew you and like they actually came up and talked to you. Do you have like a memorable one?
I have like around 150,000, so I feel like kind of at my range. It's the type of thing where it doesn't happen like super frequent. The times it has happened, it's like pretty cool. It's usually just like some like small talk, and they're just kind of like they're like, "Are you like boss CR or whatever?" That's what happened like at the gym. He was like, sorry for staring or something," but like I was like wondering like, "Are you, like boss CR or whatever?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah, I am." Usually one of the first things I said is like, "Oh, that's surprising, you recognize me because I don't get recognized like too often or whatever in public." It's pretty cool when it happens. Like it usually makes my day because it's not something like I expect is the best way to put it.
I don't see you like outside of class that often, but like, I'm literally gonna be that person. Like, oh my gosh, is that the boss CR? That'll be so funny. I'll be like, can I get an autograph? And you're gonna be like, I hate it here.
I don't know how much it like actually matters or if people are gonna like care a lot. I don't want to say like chance it or like well because like how I kind of keep like a fairly like low profile like at least in person, and I don't know if I would want if like everyone knew and if it was the type of thing where people care more than I thought, and then random people at college were just like constantly like being like, "Oh, is that the guy or whatever?" It would just be a little bit too like overwhelming for me. I feel like I don't know.
What's the nicest comment you've ever received like on a video?
It's hard to specifically think of one comment. I feel like it's ones where it's like, "Hey, I've been watching you for like such a long time, like for years now," and they give a little bit of a story too. Like I started watching you when I was in middle school, and now I'm in like almost college or whatever. I watched you when I was in high school, and now I'm like finishing up college, and it's just like kind of cool to see people like going through big phases of their life, and in a way too, I was like in part of that journey. Another big one, because it's kind of hard for me to believe sometimes, he kind of can make people's day or be something they kind of like look forward to. I don't get those comments often, but just ones where it's like they might have like stuff going on in their life, or they'll say like, "Thank you for making these videos because it's like something I can look forward to or something." And it kind of like blows my mind sometimes because I just I don't know, because to me I just think like I'm just like a gaming creator, but it's like really cool like when you have kind of like more of an impact in like people's lives, and you kind of just like form kind of that like connection with them, which is too why I think I like doing the streams sometimes and like interacting with the chat, as weird as the chat can get sometimes. Sometimes you actually can have those like meaningful conversations, and people get to know you better like on a more personal level, and then sometimes you get to know the chat like a little better too. So it's the comments that kind of go deeper beyond like just the game, and you realize you're kind of having an impact in people's like life as a whole a little bit.
Mhm.
So
That's so wholesome. What about unhinged comments? Like I've seen your streams live chat, and well, I mean, don't say something very unhinged, but like, family friendly unhinged.
I don't even know
Oh
like
no,
what
guys,
I
that's how
would
bad it is. Like
I don't
imagine.
know. I'm just thinking in my head of like all the ones, and I'm trying to think of like which ones are family friendly. I've gotten a lot of like unhinged like comments like over the years or like on streams, but one that really got me like laughing a while, and I think I even like made a tweet about it to kind of like poke fun at it because and a bunch of other people thought it was funny. There was some guy who thought what I was doing was like a show and everything was like pre-recorded. Like he thought the games like weren't live or something like that. And his explanation was because like I was never like showing my hands or something like that. It was just like very strange, but he thought it was like fake or like acting or something like that. And I remember everyone in the comments was like going at him for that. I could actually try to pull up the tweet I sent out to like find the exact thing. He replied on YouTube. He said, "Wow, I just realized he pretends to play his matches live. Watch his thumb never leave the screen, yet he is spamming cards to select. He only touches the screen when a card is dropped. Nice theater. Now that I know you were just a replay review channel for your own games, I won't be back. Gonna check through other videos to confirm you do this in all of them, though." And then he said, "Yep, just confirmed it with the minor wallbreaker video. Sick of dishonest people on YouTube staging the content. You're the Logan Paul of Clash. Please leave the platform."
You were born in Illinois.
Yep.
You didn't tell me that. You were like, I moved here from Florida, so I assumed you were from Florida. And then you said on your live, I was born in Illinois. And I was like, I thought he was born in Florida. So tell me.
I lived in Florida for most of my childhood, but I was born in Illinois.
Have you been to the Bean? Or what is it called? Cloudgate?
Wait, I don't know if I know what that is
You
actually.
don't know what the Bean is?
Wait, hold on.
Oh, you don't know what the Chicago Bean is?
No, I don't. Keep in mind though, I was just born in Chicago, Illinois, like but I was literally only there until I was like 2 years old.
Oh, okay.
And then that's around when I moved. So
So they never took you to see the Bean?
yeah, I don't know what that is. And if they did, I was really young. I might have to check that out next time I'm in Illinois to visit family.
I believe they're closed right now. Like they're doing some type of construction, but it's so cool. Wait, did you Google it?
Yeah, I did. I'll take your word for it that it looks pretty cool in person. I saw it's like a just like a giant bean.
If anyone tells me they're from Illinois, I'm like, have you seen the Bean? And you're like, I have no idea.
Do most of them say yeah or like
Yeah.
I don't know.
How is like Illinois?
I go there probably like on average every couple years to visit. That's where my grandma lives, and then one of my aunts lives there too. A couple of my cousins, so I kind of go there from time to time. It's a lot colder.
Mhm.
I mean that's like one thing that's obvious. I could probably talk more about Florida than Illinois because Illinois I'm like not as familiar with. It's a little bit more like laid back. It seems to be a tiny bit more friendlier. I don't know how to describe it compared to like this area. Not like in a massive way, but just like customer service wise there, like I just know like when you're going to like the restaurants, like the fast food places, like even if you're just going to like say like Chipotle or like Chick-fil-A. I don't know, the workers are just like very like friendly. I feel like a little bit more like talkative, probably because it's not like in as much of like a rush sometimes as it is here because because this is a very like busy area. People are very like work oriented.
What about Florida? What part of Florida did you live in from for that time?
Yeah, so Florida I remember a lot more than Illinois because that's where I kind of grew up a lot of my childhood. I think I stayed there pretty much until I was, I think, around 12. That's around when I moved to Virginia. But it was a lot different than Virginia. Even just the weather, it was like really nice. Like we would never get snow. And I remember we would always go to the beach like pretty much every weekend because it was, I think, only like 10 minutes away. It was sort of southern Florida, not like really southern though. It was Palm City was the city I was in. I think Stewart or whatever might have been like the county or whatever for like anyone watching who's like familiar with that. I remember like it was so much more the environment, like the schools especially were like definitely more like laid back. And I think that's the reason why we moved to Virginia for better schools, but it was still fun I think like growing up because I remember like in the neighborhood I lived in, the houses were like so close to each other. So we were always like interacting with like the neighbors, and then the young kids, like me and my brothers, we were always like playing with them. There was just tons of space. Like I remember behind our houses there was like a big field or whatever. We would sometimes play different kinds of sports like wiffle ball, like with the like plastic bats, and plastic balls, or like kickball, or stuff like soccer, or just like hide and seek tags. It was like I remember like really fun, especially growing up. We had a basketball hoop, and then like some of our neighbors would have that too. So sometimes we'd play stuff like knockout. In a way, I kind of miss it. But I also think at the same time, when we moved here, it was when we it was a good time to move because it was as we were like getting older, and the schools without a doubt are like way better in well, in like Northern Virginia compared to in Florida, which I think was like a big incentive for my parents to like want to move.
If you had to choose like Virginia or Florida, which one do you like more?
So I think right now definitely Virginia, like while I'm like still studying, but then like after I graduate, I probably would go with Florida because I just think it depends on the situation you're in. But I think like when you're not at the point yet where like you're kind of on your own, like you don't have a family, so you're not worried about like the schools they're going to. I just think like the cost of living and stuff like that, it's just a lot more affordable in Florida compared to this area. So like when that's a factor too, and then also like quality of life, I think like Florida in general is like really fun, and the weather and all that, and the beaches. I probably would go with Florida, but I think it really depends on where you're at in life and like your job and all that. But if I'm doing what I'm doing now, technically speaking, I could work really anywhere. Like
Mhm.
I could be in the middle of nowhere, like in Wyoming, like with like, nothing going on, and I could still uh, be just fine there too. So it really just kind of depends.
What does a normal day look like when you're filming content? But like, what does the whole
Mm,
day look like?
okay, yeah, I got you. I mean, it depends if I have class or not, because if I have class, then it's like I'm always like waking up like pretty much last minute I can before that, like getting ready, and then usually like like I don't know, after that I'm usually like kind of a bit tired, so I'm not like immediately like ready to like record, so I'll usually need some like time to like chill a bit, so that might be like working out or whatever, or just like watching some videos. And so I would say like recording, I typically like to do that in the evening. Like I'm definitely not a like a morning person for sure. I don't want to say like I'm a complete night owl, but I definitely feel more productive in the evening. So that's when I do like a lot of the recordings. But streaming, I know I have to do it a little earlier because of time zones and stuff. So,
Yeah, because sometimes I watch like your discussion videos and it's pitch black in your room and like you can see like outside the window, it's just dark. I'm like, what time is it, man?
yeah, sometimes I'm just recording at like 10 p.m. or like midnight even, but
That's like the life of a college student, guys. Like we're just
it pretty much.
yeah.
I very rarely. I mean, you can probably well speak for this too. I feel like almost everyone like in college that I've seen, like I realized that just everyone has like a really bad sleep schedule, or like everyone is often staying up until like 2 a.m. for whatever reason.
What are you doing when you're not making content? Like hobbies? I know you said you really enjoy the gym.
Hmm. Yeah, good question. I mean, that's actually one thing too. I was looking into like when I was really like obsessed with the game, I realized like I need like some more like hobbies, so it's not like my sole focus of like whenever I have free time, it's getting like dedicated to the game. I mean, I try to be pretty productive. I feel like um maybe my life would to some other young people be like a little more boring because I'm not like doing like tons of like exciting stuff all the time. I feel like now my main form of like like exercise or activity definitely is working out. I like to walk a lot. Like that's something I do pretty much like every day too. It's kind of a thing I like to do when I'm like thinking about things a lot or just need to like wind down. Just like walk, listen to music. And I like watching like always, there's like a good movie or stuff. And then like just like YouTube videos and stuff like that. And I think I spend a lot of time too just like talking to people like in like group chats or just like calls online with like a lot of the people that I, play games with. So, I mean, those would be like some of my like I guess like hobbies because I don't like work like what you would consider a traditional job because like content creation is my I guess my job and then with classes it kind of feels like sometimes I don't have a ton of exciting hobbies. Maybe sometimes like getting together with like some of my like my friends from like time to time. I kind of, you know, just have a pretty like stable, like consistent life overall. Every few months I might do something exciting like the traveling to Finland for like the World Finals or going on like some sort of trip or something.
I can't imagine playing one game for like 6, 7 hours. Like, was that like hard on your eyes?
Nah, I think you just kind of get used to it because I've kind of like, even when I was young, I've always played video games. Like, even before Clash Royale, playing that a lot. Like, I played Clash of Clans, I played like Roblox a lot, like Geometry Dash, if you're familiar with that. And then, like, when I was like even younger than that, I had a DS or like a Game Boy since I was like 5 or 6 years old. I just I probably just got used to it. But at that age, obviously there were big limitations. Like
Mm-hmm.
my mom wouldn't let me like play for several hours when I was that age. It was the type of thing where it was like a couple hours, but still like early on, I've always kind of been into video games.
Hmm. You spoke about realizing having your life revolve around the game wasn't healthy in a stream last year. How has the game and content creation affected you mentally and physically over the years?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I realized it's important to have balance, like, and just like too much of something isn't good, even if it's something you're very motivated to achieve and it's like something you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to have like, for me at least, I realized like other interests in life or like other things going on because it just wasn't healthy to be like too obsessed with it. And I found myself reaching that point sometimes. It was around probably in like 2020, maybe like 2019, uh, maybe still even in 2021, where I was spending like so much time where I had that like average of playing like 7, 8 hours a day, oftentimes, like, and it was like that for like like sometimes even like months or and it would be too like every day of the week, not even just like oh like it's just like on weekends because there's just so much free time because of the way classes were or it would be that way like during the summer. So even if it was a fairly like normal year, I would just try to every minute of free time I would have would be dedicated to that, even if I had other things going on like baseball, because I wouldn't have to spend like too much time doing like schoolwork or studying often. But I just realized like like just like long term it wasn't really good. I just found for myself to be pretty like obsessed with it. I would just kind of like have a lot of days where I would be kind of like just it would seem like my mood would always be about like how well I was doing in the game. So it's like if I was in a good mood, it would be because I like doing well in the game and like having success. And then if I was in like a bad mood, then it was because it like wasn't going well. So it was just like negatively impacting my mood in life in general. And I guess that's why I think I mentioned um for me like working out or like how I've been like walking more. That's been like very beneficial, like as just making sure like I'm staying healthy because there were like a couple years where I like obviously I was never like like really, really out of shape, like weighing like way too much, but I was just like not really that like healthy because there was a time like where I wasn't like I think I wasn't doing baseball or like I definitely stopped doing track around those years I mentioned, like 2020, 2021, 2019. Because a lot of the sports were canceled anyway because of COVID, like baseball, track. So I just wasn't like exercising or like being as healthy as I normally was. And then I realized that's like another thing I gotta like get back into my life. And like since then, like since I've kind of added that back into my life, and also as content creation has taken off too, because I started to like prioritize that more than just playing, because it, even though it's still the game, it's another aspect of it. So I'm not like devoting so much of like my, I guess, like mental strength into just like how good I am at a game, but also into like creativity as a creator.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like making sure like I'm socializing as much as I can, or just like, I think even, yeah, how we both are going to like school now too, that's been like helpful for me too, like having classes going on. Overall, just being for me like very, trying to be as well rounded as I possibly can be, just has been, had a really positive effect on my mental health, I've noticed over the last couple years.
Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for someone that may be struggling to find that balance between gaming and, just their life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think too, as hard as it is, because I was at that point in my life when I was around, I guess it was, I was like 16, yeah, around 16, 17. That was, I remember the age where I was really obsessed with the game. It was pretty much my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard, it maybe can be hard for other people to hear this advice, because I remember when I was at that age and some people would tell me, like whether it was my parents or other people online, they would tell me like, oh, there's more to life than just this game.
Mm-hmm.
I would have a hard time believing it, because it's like, to me, it's like the thing you're really like into and you're caring about so much. But then I think as you get older, oftentimes, and like expand your interest, you realize like how it's kind of true.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be something I would tell like myself when I was, if I could tell like my younger self that, I would tell them that. um and I think that's something too that just comes in life in general, like as you get older, you realize there's like kind of more important things in life, or like more to life than just the game. And even if it is really important to you, just, I think creating that just balance is really important. Like the earlier you do that, the better. Especially if you notice it's something that is like taking a toll on your mental health. Like if you do feel like you're getting too carried away or like obsessed with it, especially if I think it's an evaluation like everyone has to make for themselves, but
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of it too is why I really realized I needed to like adjust what I was doing and like make changes, is because I did want to continue playing the game. I knew like stopping completely wasn't the right call, especially because it got to the point where it's kind of like a job with YouTube too, or even when I played professionally, like you still had like kind of a salary
Mm-hmm.
there. But like with YouTube especially, I knew I wanted it to like stay in my life and continue doing it. I just had to figure out a way for me that I could manage it, balance everything, not even just having the time for everything in life, but just like mentally too, being able to handle like all the just like emotions, or just like whatever's, I guess, like going on, or if that makes sense. It's like, it's definitely, I think, important for people that are like really into gaming, because gaming is definitely, like in my opinion, um I think there's like nothing wrong with it, because like everyone has kind of activities that you would argue are like not necessary, like whether for some people it's like, maybe watching like shows, movies, like binge watching things. A lot of people might be gaming, and it's fine, but just like everything in like moderation, I guess is the best way to put it. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it turns into your job, there still needs to be uh moderation. Like for me, like it was my job and I enjoyed doing it, but still it's like you need to make sure you got other things going on in your life, whether it's like socializing or even just making sure you're staying healthy mentally and physically.
What's one thing you wish your audience knew about you?
I don't know like what a good one would be. I wonder if what you mentioned earlier where it's like the way I am in my videos is kind of like how I am in real life because a lot of people think of like the creators like in their videos they're like very different from how they are in real life, but I've noticed like people I've interacted with like in real life will say that too sometimes. Besides just you, they'll be like, you know, you're kind of like how you are in your videos, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, and you know, oftentimes they'll say that's not like a bad thing. They'll just be like, that's you know, that's good. That could be one. I don't know if there's a more like interesting one, but I kind of that came to my mind, especially because you mentioned earlier in the interview or when we were just talking, that's something you picked up on. So
Guys, it's not an act. I promise. This is their boss and Eric are like the same exact person. What motivates you and what inspires you?
I feel like there's a lot of things that motivate and inspire me. I mean, maybe it's like something obvious, but I try to be pretty productive and I feel like I'm motivated and driven by success or like trying to be successful, like trying to be the best kind of version of myself I can be in like a lot of areas of my life. And like content's obviously one of them. And I feel like the inspiration sometimes I'll get from other people that are like very successful in their craft. So whether that's like content in general, like the big creators of YouTube, so obviously like the Mr. Beast and stuff like that, or like, you know, a big gaming creator, or even in the Clash Royale scene, there's a few creators who you know, have a larger channel than I do. So, you know, maybe seeing them have that success or knowing like, okay, you know, the potential is there if you know, keep working hard and learning. But I think it's that way in a lot of areas of life. I just in general have a lot of respect for people that kind of like, you know, like made it in their field, even if it's like we were talking earlier about like music, like, you know, musicians, like artists, like all those guys. I mean, I'm not saying they're all guaranteed to be like good people just because they're successful, but in the
Mm-hmm.
aspect of, you know, success and like, I guess, achieving things in life, and just trying to build like a big community over time. Like it's just kind of cool seeing that happen, I guess, like gradually. I think that's another aspect of it too, like working towards it and knowing it's not something that happens like overnight type of thing too.
And speaking of that, what's the best piece of life advice you can give someone?
Yeah, it's tricky. I'm very careful with in general my words when I'm giving advice because I know it's not good to give like unsolicited advice. I think and I try to stay true with this. I think it's very important to do things you enjoy and kind of have a passion for, because it makes it easier to work hard to and achieve that goal too. For the game I play and like content, now I might see it as more of a job kind of as I've gotten into it and gotten used to it. But I remember at the beginning I didn't even do it for like, as hard as it is to believe, um I didn't even do it for the like the money. It was because I enjoyed it. And I do think most creators will tell you that, especially at the start, because when you're getting into it, you don't even know if you're gonna like make it and it's gonna become a job. And this is just content creation in general, but I think that's for anything. Like if you're really into sports or something, or like playing an instrument, you know, try to do things you enjoy, and then sometimes success is kind of like a byproduct of it because of just like how just passionate you are for it. I guess, and then not giving up is a big factor too. With a lot of people too, like they'll give up like too early. Obviously, you have to be realistic and make sure you're not wasting a ton of time. But like Mr. Beast, for example, who's the biggest YouTuber, he wasn't always that way. He would
Mm-hmm.
be uploading videos at the start that barely got any attention, like any traction, but he just like kept at it for years, and now he's the
biggest
biggest
YouTuber.
channel because
Hmm.
he was so passionate about it. He believed in himself and he ultimately enjoyed it. And I really like that point you made about when you're young too, it's really hard to navigate what you want to do. And I think that would be like another piece of advice I could give, or it's kind of, yeah, piggybacking sort of like off of what you said a little bit, how it's like finding things you're interested and passionate in and realizing, even though, like for me personally, I'm going to college as a, I would say sort of in my mind right now, I see it as more of like a backup in
Hmm.
case being like an entrepreneur, content creator doesn't work out like long term. I don't know what's going to be going on 5, 10 years from now, if I'm still going to be doing content creation, if I'm going to be doing something else online, like making money by my own means. That's personally what I would prefer. As a person, I just feel like I prefer having my own schedule over working like the typical 9 to 5. But at
Hmm.
the same time, that might not be the path for everyone. I imagine a lot of people watching this will be around my age. You don't have to have it all figured out. Like I don't
Hmm.
either, which is why I'm, going to college and getting kind of a degree just as a backup. And maybe for you guys watching, like even though you're going to college and it's good you're doing that, personally I'd be an advocate of going to college. I think
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
it's just good to have the most amount of opportunities, but while you're doing it, pursue other things you're interested in. You might be able to have enough time, or you should have enough time for other hobbies, side hustles, and you never know. Be open to the opportunity that might lead to something more than what your plans were in
Hmm.
college. So it really just sort of depends. Just you never know really where life is gonna take you, I guess. That's the best way to put it.
Make sure to like this video and subscribe to Boss.
And make sure to like the video and subscribe to Serena Marissa.